I started my learning and development journey in the state public service in Victoria. I was working in HR in a recruitment role, but I wanted to get into learning and development because I had a background in psychology and I had a background in theatre, and I thought that would go well, presenting meaningful material in that sort of education space. I thought would suit me very well. So I applied for a job, went for an interview, and didn't get it. And after the interview, was told that I would never work in training and development because I didn't have the skills and experience necessary to work in the field. So I was gutted. I went back to my HR role and continued a career in HR for the next year or so, and was working in another government department as the assistant personnel manager when I got a call from Marlene Peters, who had attended a training course with me as participants some weeks earlier. And we must have got talking, and so she knew that I was interested in L&D, and she had a role available. It was a 5-week secondment, and she asked me to apply for it. So naturally, I parroted what I'd been told. I told her that I didn't have the skills and experience necessary to be a learning and development person, and she laughed at me and said, "Don't be silly, come in for the interview." So I went in for the interview. I was successful, but the 5 weeks secondment became a 12-month secondment, and the 12-month secondment became a career. So what I learned from that, two things I learned from that. One is just say yes. If you've got anything, if there's any inkling to do with things, just say yes and work it out later. The second thing I learned from that was don't believe everything people tell you. They don't always have your best interests at heart. So I was glad of that. Mistakes? Oh, as an internal consultant, I remember a time when I had organised a training course. It was a very popular topic. We had like 60 people on a waiting list to do the program and so on. So I booked in Barry Shepherd, booked the training room for the day, got the catering organised, did all the things that we normally do. And on the actual day, I was off-site, so I couldn't help. But that's okay. Barry had worked with us many times before, so he knew how to set up the room, and he was well known to everybody. So he got in, set up the room, and then he discovered that there was one tiny thing I'd forgotten to do. I'd forgotten to invite any participants to the program. So he sat there on his own for a while and then eventually packed up and went home. Fortunately for me, he has a good sense of humour, and we laughed about it, and we worked together a number of times after that. But it was a great embarrassment to me, and as a consequence of that, I developed systems to make sure that it couldn't happen again with some fail-safes, and I'm happy to say that it didn't ever happen again. So I did learn from that lesson. Tips. My best tip for an internal training consultant who's new in the field is sit in with, work with, co-facilitate with as many different people as you can, as many different styles as you can. Absorb and observe as much as you can possibly get your hands on. I used to sit in the back of all the training courses while I was just a training broker, hiring other people, and I would take notes, not just on their content, but also on their process. Later on, I worked as a training facilitator in a government department where we always co-trained, so there was always two of us in the room. And that was absolutely a gold mine. I learned in 6 months there. I learned more about the art of facilitation than I did in the previous 3.5 years. So that was a really rich time, and I still seek out every opportunity to co-train, particularly with people who are not like me, who are different. Their delivery style is different, because I learned so much, and I would recommend that to anybody new in the field or experienced in the field. It'd be the same. For an external consultant, the best piece of advice or the best tip I could give would be, don't take it personally. It feels personal when it's your own business. It feels personal when it's your own content, but don't take it personally. I remember a long time ago, I delivered a program. I thought it had gone well. 19 participants thought it had gone well, and one participant hadn't liked it. So guess which one I focused on? I just swept aside the 19 people who were giving me positive feedback, and I honed in on that one piece of negative feedback to the point where it was really doing my head in. It was really spinning me around, and I was contemplating giving up my career in learning and development, until it was pointed out to me that there were 19 people who really thought it was good and one who didn't. And you need to focus on the bulk there. People have their own reasons for liking or not liking a training course, and you do not have any control over that. Of course, if 4 or 5 people had said something similar about the training course, then I would have paid attention and I would have adapted and adopted and evolved the style. But this was one person. Who knows? Maybe they wanted to deliver the course themselves. I've got no idea. So don't take it personally. Generally speaking, that's a good rule for life. Don't take it personally. How do I stay current? Oh, well, I'm a curious person. I love learning. I love reading. I love researching new content. So, I read books. I read articles. I write stuff. I'm doing a lot of writing at the moment. I just absorb as much as I can. And that includes attending. So I'll attend as much as I possibly can, and then watch and view, via the internet as much material as I can as well, because I just love it. It's just the best thing to be learning new things all the time, and it develops you as a person, but it also develops my content and my delivery style. So that's good. Another way I stay current and up to date is through networking. Got a lot of colleagues. So over the however many years that I've been working in this field, 30 odd years in this field, well, I've got quite a few colleagues, and we'll stop and have coffee, talk about what's going on, what's the latest and greatest, what new tool or what new app we're using, and so on, and what's working well in the training room and what's not. And to that end, on a Friday, I love attending the ILP's L&D lounge, where we virtually get together. Probably on average about 15 people get into the room, and we just mull over ideas and questions that we have about the L&D field. And that's been a really rich source of networking, which has also helped me stay current. There's people in that room, in that L&D room, who are internal consultants, they're external consultants, they're instructional designers, they're vet professionals or corporate professionals, and it's a really mixed bag in there. So it's always good and fruitful. Must-haves in my training bag. So I'll split this into two. The first must-have is a physical must-have. One thing I always take with me when I go training is a clock. And the reason for that is because the number of times I've walked into a training room and there's no clock anywhere. Or if there is a clock, it's behind me. So I've got no idea what the time is. And you need to know what the time is to keep on track and to know when the breaks are and so on. So I bring a little clock. I bought it, I don't know, a supermarket or somewhere. It cost me a few dollars. It's about 5 centimeters tall, and it just sits on the desk, and I can look at that without having to go, what's the time, or look at my phone. I can just look at the clock subtly, and no one knows that I'm timekeeping there. So that's an essential. I'll probably end up using that clock 50% of the time in different training rooms. So yeah, so it's been very useful. I've gone through a few batteries. The other must-have, and this is more of a skills must-have, I believe as facilitators, we've got the content. That's why we're asked to deliver the program. The content's down pat. We've been to some level of professional development where we've learned the craft of facilitation, learning and development. What they can't teach you is the ability to read the room. And to me, this is essential. You know the content well enough. Now what you've got to do is focus on the participants and read their non-verbal communication. You need to know, you need to understand how they're coping with the content, how they're engaging with your delivery style. And if there's a disconnect there, you then have to have the quickness to adjust and adapt what you're doing, whether it's content or delivery style, to better suit their needs. After all, that's why you're there. You're not there to deliver content A, B, C, D, and E. You're actually there to meet the needs of the participants. So you need to be focused on them at all times. So that would be the two tips I'd definitely have for you.